anyway, we have a huge story to really talk about, and it happened just over last night and the day before, which is that the U.S. bombed Iran again, but the first time this year. Right? First of the year, but second regime change of the year that they're trying in 9 weeks. I saw a stat that said 22% of Saturdays the U.S. has tried a regime change in another country in 2026. There's only been 9 Saturdays, and 2 out of 9, which is we're laughing because we have to, but it's a disaster. It's a national embarrassment. Like, this is again horrible. I'll go do a brief rundown, and then Rick, I want to hear what you think. The U.S. is calling it Operation Epic Fury. I didn't know Elon was naming these things. And Israel calls it Roaring Lion. So, yeah, they started bombing them like crazy after their nuclear talks failed. Trump really can't make a deal with these guys. And in the fighting, the huge news, other than all the bombing that happened through Iran, all these different defense sites got bombed. But the big deal is that their supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, was killed in the strikes. That's like the kingpin of Iran. He's been in charge for a very, very long time, and part of the regime that has made Iran so religious and conservative over the last, 40, 50 years. And yeah, Iran retaliated, shot a bunch of missiles all over the U.S. Bases in the region. So in Qatar, in Bahrain, in Kuwait, in Jordan, Saudi Arabia, UAE, all over the place. And we're just finding out this morning that at least 3 U.S. soldiers were killed. 5 were seriously wounded. And yeah, there's so much more to talk about, and I'm gonna do a big soliloquy probably. So Rick, I want to hear what you think before I start monologue.
Yeah, I guess I'm surprised how quickly it happened. He kind of like teased it during the State of the Union. Like he did mention Iran, but it's very aggressive, and yeah, I'm just surprised it kind of escalated this fast into taking out the supreme leader versus like a more gradual bombing campaign. Why it happened now, I think, is still a question. It kinda seems like Trump is in a rush to do a lot of things in general, and I don't know if that's because of his health or because of the midterms or what. He
Epstein
kinda
too. I mean, I'm
right,
sure a
or
lot of
Epstein,
people.
like,
Yeah, yeah.
it seems like he's afraid of losing power, even if that just means Democrats take the House back. Like, it does seem like he's trying to cram in as much as possible right now. Um I do think it's interesting that this is the second government he's toppled in the past few months since the Epstein bill was passed to release the files.
Yep.
After running as an anti-regime change politician for 10 years.
No more
It's a
foreign,
pretty
no more
shocking
new
turn.
wars. He's bombed like 10 countries in the last year. It's unbelievable.
Right, and that was a line he said against Hillary, Biden, and Harris, was all that they're more likely to enter a war than I am. So, once again, the hypocrisy is insane. Trump himself said the campaign is a massive and ongoing operation that could last a week or as long as necessary. It definitely seems like a much larger operation than Venezuela. But I guess we'll just see. But just shocking news. Curious how people on the right, I guess, will react, but we'll see. But yeah, what was your reaction?
I mean, it's let's just get out of the way that it's illegal, right? He broke the law by doing this. Once again, it's just getting completely lost time and time again that this is illegal for the president to just unilaterally start a war without congressional approval. Like, I don't know why we're all so numb to this. You know what I mean? Like, that he just does this time and time again. But yeah, it's an illegal war once again, and from some of the reports, now we don't know if it was an Israeli strike or the U.S. strike, but a school was hit in Iran, killing like up to maybe 100 children or women, like kids and stuff. That's a war crime, all right, and disastrous. Like, honestly, like depressing and unbelievably sad. Like, whatever you feel about, not you, but like the listener, like about the Iranian government or what they did to their protesters and all that stuff, all awful. But like, that doesn't mean a bunch of kids should get shot. And it's exactly the same logic of Gaza, right? Like, You might not like Hamas. You may think Hamas is a terrorist group. I'd agree. Why does a random dude who's like a plumber in Palestine have to die? You know what I mean? Like they're not related. It you know, it's devastating and it's a literal war crime. So that is important to just say off the jump. The other thing that I can't help but feel is just how bad, and I did the Wednesday show about, like, are we about to go to war with Iran? So, yes, you know what I mean? But how horrible Trump has handled with Iran over the nuclear deal is just needs to be readdressed. Like, he tore up the Iranian nuclear deal in 2018, right? Which capped the enrichment that Iran was able to do to 3 and a change percent. To keep in mind, military grade uranium is 90% enrichment, and they were at 3. He tore that up, saying he could negotiate a better deal with force, then completely failed, then bombed Iran last summer. We talked about it on the show, saying that he completely obliterated all of their nuclear capabilities. And then 6 months later, said they're about to get another nuclear war, killed everyone, and killed their leader. And look, okay, yeah, like, again, I don't love the Iranian leadership at all. I'm not saying they're a good leadership. And it's similar to the way I felt about Maduro. Like, they're different, but same, like I'd say, bad guys, like definitely bad guys who have done horrible things. But it should be said, every single time the U.S. does this, it's a disaster. Afghanistan, Iraq, Libya, Venezuela now. I mean, there's never any plans. Saddam Hussein was a bad dude. They took him out. What happened? Afghanistan, the Taliban, what happened? Like, Libya, Gaddafi, what happened? Like, it's not like these half-baked regime change type interventions that aren't, like, fully there. And let us not, forget, by the way, with Iran, that the reason why they did this was that whole Shah drama originally, which caused all this anti-American hate and the rise of the Khomeini people in generals. You know what I mean? The Ayatollah whole regime only emerged because of U.S. intervention originally. So it's just so stupid. It not only speaks, I think, to Trump's inability to negotiate a deal, which he's completely failed at, hence why he's bombing and can't seem to negotiate. It speaks to how bad his international relations ability is, his diplomatic skills, just understanding of geopolitics is zero, like he has none. And then lastly, and I think this is the one that should resonate the most with our conservative audience, his complete disregard for American lives. Like, he doesn't care about killing people, you know what I mean? Like, one way or the other. And the audacity that this is a dude who claims that, like, he's ended wars and is a peace prize person and blah, blah, blah. Like, I saw this on Instagram, and I want to give credit because I saw a lot of people have made this kind of thing about, comparing Trump's announcement of the Iranian attacks to Lord Farquaad and Shrek. I don't know if you saw this.
No.
I'm gonna play this clip because it's just it gives the same energy. But listen to this. It's the same. Is it not the exact same sentence? I'm glad he cares so much about his Lord.
Yeah.
The Lord
Some of
Farquaad comp.
some of your children will go off and die. Definitely not my children, but some of
No.
your children will.
Definitely not me either when I dodged the draft with bone spurs. But uh, yeah, I mean, and like we said, 3 soldiers have now been killed unneedingly. You know what I mean? Like, it's just not only was the nuclear deal with Iran originally working, they had never broken it. Everything was fine. They weren't originating. They were willing to go back. I want to talk more about the wider context, but like, any thoughts on what I just said? Like, what do you think about that?
Yeah, obviously we have not learned our lessons from
No,
the other wars you mentioned.
or 6 weeks ago with Venezuela.
Dick Cheney famously said right before we invaded Iraq that they will welcome us as liberators, the people of the country.
Yeah.
And that's very much the vibe that Trump is going for. Like, in this State of the Union, Trump mentioned Iran has jailed or killed 2,000 protesters in the past few years. So he's framing this as we're liberating the people of the country. And I am not optimistic about that when we're blowing up schools, that the people are all going to be like, oh, the American saviors are here.
Yep.
Especially, of course, with the history of what you mentioned before the Iranian Revolution that put in this current form of government in 1979 was overthrowing a U.S.-backed government, that the U.S. basically installed the leader there, and that's what this revolution was against. So it's so similar to the lead up to Iraq. Like, all the justifications are basically the same. Like, there's an imminent threat involving a weapon of mass destruction, but don't worry, because once we go in, the people will all celebrate and see us as saviors and liberators of their country. That's not going to happen. And
No.
also, what about the other 100 something countries that don't have a Western democracy? Like, should we overthrow those 100 governments? Like, why don't we just start taking out every leader that's somewhat authoritarian in the entire world? There's obviously worse dictators than the supreme leader.
Saudi Arabia is the best example because it's right next door. You know what I mean? Like, and they don't get along, and the U.S. supports Saudi Arabia so strongly. And it's the thing that I think anyone in the Middle East has been very tangibly like, Americans are hypocrites, not America, but like the government and stuff like that. Because like the Wahhabi, like what they do in Saudi Arabia, I mean, they're jailing journalists, what they do to women. I mean, it's like the most conservative Islamic state, basically, other than like the ISIS pseudo state that existed for a few years. Like, it's so, so, so conservative. And we have no issue giving them money. And I also like, you know, obviously Iran, they do this every time the U.S. get where they shoot rockets at various bases, like, you know, in the UAE and in Qatar and whatnot. And they always like all these countries like block the missiles. You know what I mean? Like before they get in. But it's like, what an awful burden that these countries now have to do. Like, they didn't sign up for this. Now that they're like getting rockets shot into their country and like saving the U.S. bases. It is something like weirdly taken for granted that they just do that when they like, I mean, imagine if we had like,
Right, we're not getting bombed in America.
no, it's a bunch of random other Middle Eastern countries. Imagine if like, yeah, like if France bombed some country in Africa, so Mexico shot a you know what I mean? Like so someone shot a missile at us and we defended a base. Like it's hard to like, you know what I mean?
Right,
Like,
and, like, imagine living in Abu Dhabi where there were bombs yesterday in the UAE, and it's like, wouldn't you look around and be like, "Wait, why do we allow American bases here? Why are we allies with America? They just go around bombing people whenever they want, and then we have to deal with the retribution."
Exactly. It's ridiculous. It's so unfair. Like it's such a bad deal.
I
And
also think we should talk about the Israel part too,
yeah,
because
100%.
there's a lot of things, especially in the past year, where people say, like, it's all about the AIPAC money, Israel controls the United States, blah, blah, blah. Like, some of that's exaggerated, some of that's true. But, like, in this instance, obviously it's a joint effort by the U.S. and Israel. It's not like they're hiding anything. But, like, Iran really was Israel's number one enemy. And that's saying something because Israel has, like, 200 enemies.
Yeah.
Like, the majority of countries on the planet are somewhat or very hostile towards Israel for good reason.
Especially
And-
nowadays. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But like, Iran's always been the biggest one because
Mhm.
of all of Israel's most hostile enemies, they have the most powerful military. And they famously have said, we don't want Israel to exist repeatedly. So
We'll
like
make it a sea of
Netanyahu,
flames.
right? Netanyahu has always held up Iran as like enemy number one. They're the ones we need to watch out for. We're still going to bomb all these other Middle Eastern countries in the meantime, but eventually we'll have to get to Iran. And like what I mentioned originally about the timing of everything, this just seems like Netanyahu was able to convince Trump this needs to happen now because Netanyahu knows he's not going to have a leader that's as friendly to him in Israel ever again, honestly. Like Trump
Yep.
is such a lapdog for Israel and seemingly just does whatever the Israeli government wants him to do. And I think that was realizing, like, it's now or never. Like, Trump has probably more power right now than he'll ever have, hopefully. knock
Mhm.
on wood, but
Yeah.
like hopefully his power is at his peak right now. And I think Netanyahu just recognized that and was like, if we're going to overthrow the Iranian government, which we've wanted to do since 1979,
Yeah.
and it's
Yeah.
been 46 years, and we want to do it, like, it's now or never because we need the US's, we need American cooperation. We can't do it without them, or else the rest of the world in the Middle East will unite and invade Israel and blah, blah, blah. And so, like, they knew they needed American cooperation. And I just feel like Netanyahu was able to convince Trump, probably through compliments about his wealth and gold.
And
Um,
beautiful daughter.
right.
Probably
Was
complimented.
able to convince Trump that this is a thing that needs to be done now. So the Israel part is huge, and it's just interesting because you have a lot of people in the right wing media world online that have really turned on Israel, but are still supporting Trump, who is willing to do literally whatever Israel wants to the point of sending U.S. military into other countries and overthrowing their government. So it's another part of the hypocrisy that, like, it's kind of hard to understand. If there was ever something Trump did, if there was ever an instance of Trump doing Israel's bidding, this is the peak. Trump took out their number one enemy.
Yep. And that comboed with the attacks in like the planning of the new Gaza thing, and they were gonna and putting Netanyahu on the board of peace, even though he was the one who killed all of them. Yeah, 100%. And it also should be mentioned too, like that Witkoff and Kushner, who are the board of peace, Israel embassy, were the people negotiating the deal with Iran. Like that's that the people who failed to negotiate were Witkoff and Kushner, who seemingly are heavily involved in the entire every action of the Middle East. Like are like kind of running like the country, but they're run by Netanyahu, to your point. And yeah, I think it's such a good topic, and it's also it's maybe the most upsetting, I think. Like because one, I just simply do not understand why the US is so comfortable being puppeted by Israel in so many ways. Like, I get why the US cares about its alliance with Israel. I understand why it would support Israel, especially in the context of the last 100 years, obviously. But like, why are we so comfortable just doing their bidding for very little benefit of our own? Like, I don't really get it. And yeah, I mean, so Netanyahu's visited Trump 7 times this first year, which is more than any other world leader by a big margin. And he was in Washington just a few weeks ago, like to talk more about this stuff, you know? So it's not even a conspiracy to say what you're saying. It's just true. You know what I mean? Like it's just I think what you're saying is just the case. Like I don't think that's like, really. And I think yeah, I mean, I wonder like why. I really wonder why. And, like, you could say, "Oh, AIPAC funding and stuff like that," and AIPAC is a big lobby and is obviously heavily influential, but they're not the biggest lobby, you know? Like, the crypto lobby's bigger, oil, pharma, all that, you know what I mean? Like, these companies have more influence. Yet it does seem like AIPAC seems to have a very outsized influence given the amount of actual money that they give, and I, it's embarrassing. You know what I mean? Not only, like, it makes it hard, I think, to the whole thing of who's the good guys and who's the bad guys has always been relative, you know what I mean? Because that stuff just depends on perspective. I do think it's hard to understand that even further nowadays with just the amount of influence. But do you have any thoughts on this? Like, why are because it's not even just obviously Trump way more so, but Biden was the same way. You know, you could argue even Obama was same way. You know what I mean? Like, it does feel like they have a very big grip on American intervention actions, and I just don't really get it.
I think, yeah, I think like you said, there are bigger lobbyists. Like whenever people make comments, like the pun, it's all about the Benjamins, which is a clever pun, by the way.
Yeah, yeah.
But, uh,
It's all about the
but
BBs.
But those types of comments really do overstate the amount of money when you're comparing it to the oil lobby. Like you said, oil and pharma and health insurance and all those people. I mean, they have tens of thousands of lobbyists whose full-time jobs are to effectively bribe our politicians towards their policies. Like APAC is not as powerful as
No.
those guys. They're strong, but they're not as powerful. The United States has been broadly neoconservative since Reagan, right? And that includes Democrats. That includes Clinton and Obama and Biden. In terms, like, obviously they were not as neoconservative as Cheney, but they are in just the general idea of, like, the United States has a role in shaping the governments around the world. And if there's any distant threat to the United States, it's okay for us to take preemptive action against these countries. It's justified because of the imminent future threat, like that basic idea, which is obviously questionable. But like, it does seem like the two parties largely have agreed on that since forever, really since World War II.
Yeah.
Since, like, since isolationism kind of became like a fringe view in the country after World War II. Like, I think that general argument of Israel's our strongest ally in an area where we don't have very strong allies, and so dealing with Israel's bullshit and caving to their demands is worth it because of the surveillance and intelligence and bases and all of that. Like, there's that, like, realist, like, neocon, like, military argument, right? And I think that does explain a lot of the this administration. This administration, while Netanyahu has become more and more radical and more aggressive and killing more people than ever the past couple of years, and you see Obama and Biden take a step back with, like, how loyal they're being, even though they're still too loyal to Israel, but they definitely took a step back. And now Trump has just taken so many steps forward with just literally doing whatever Netanyahu likes. Meanwhile, Netanyahu is more hated around the world than he's ever been, even arguably more hated in his own country than he's ever been too. So I think that's the real question, is like, why is Trump so loyal, more loyal to Israel than any president's ever been at the time when Israel is doing the most outlandish stuff than they have before and is being more aggressive than they have before? And that's a good question. I don't know. Like, I think part of it is Trump likes people that know how to massage his ego and compliment him. And Netanyahu, just like Vladimir Putin, are both much smarter than Trump on just an intelligence basis. And they know what they have to do to get what they want from Trump. So, like, some of it's just a personality thing. Some of it's Jared Kushner, for whatever reason, has this massive foreign policy role in both of Trump's administrations.
Yeah.
Even though he's a real estate developer who inherited everything from his dad, who Trump pardoned and got out of jail for financial crimes, by the way. But, like, so Jared's obviously very loyal to Netanyahu personally. And then there's the conspiracy theories, right? So there's Jewish money is controlling everything. And it's not as simple as AIPAC, which, like we said, is not, I wouldn't say they're as strong as some of these other lobbies. So in terms of money, so like what explains it? There's hidden Jewish money I don't believe this, obviously I'm Jewish, but like the theory that there's hidden Jewish money everywhere that we don't know about. But then there's the more believable but still unproven conspiracies around Epstein and around Israel, as we know, has some of the most advanced counterintelligence in the world. They've been like that since their founding. Obviously, Maxwell's father, who was a media, like a massive media guy in Europe, was found to be, working for Mossad. He mysteriously died from falling off his boat years ago. And then the Epstein-Israel connections, where it's like tough to know how much of that is Epstein was connected to a million powerful people. And that's, the whole difficulty with like figuring out who are Epstein's real friends and who were just people that he met at some charity event that have nothing to do with him or Epstein's crimes. So there's all these theories about Israel having intelligence on Trump and effectively blackmailing him.
Yeah.
Now, I think some of that is by people that is by right-wing anti-Semitic people that love Trump, and they're looking for some reason to justify why he's so loyal to Israel. So they're like, oh, they must have something on him. But like at the same time, like Trump's social life was a disaster, right? He's accused of rape. He's accused
Yeah.
of raping minors. So, like, the idea that the most advanced counterintelligence country in the world would have dirt on Trump isn't that crazy. So, I know I just went on for a little while, but there are a lot of options, I feel like. It's tough to know exactly why.